Hello there, my name is Sean Edwards and I just happen to be the person who developed this game, Lunar Flight. Now I've heard some people are having a bit of trouble flying Lunar Flight, and that's to be expected. Lunar Flight is very hard. So I'm going to show you how to play Lunar Flight, and to do that I will play it on the Hills map. Now there are a couple of very simple fundamental things that you need to learn when playing Lunar Flight, and I will teach you what those things are. Now first we need to turn on the power. Power is on. Now when you first start Lunar Flight it might be very confusing, you don't know what to do. Firstly, if you're playing with the Xbox controller, which is what you probably should be. If you own an Oculus Rift, you would have got one with it, and I highly recommend that you use it. Unless, of course, you have a HOTAS and you want to use that. But for now, we'll talk about the gamepad, the Xbox controller. And so on your left here, this particular menu here has a section, or basically you can interact with anything in here using the A button on the controller. So if it highlights, it's most likely you can press that button. So I can press these buttons here, changes the display output on there. I tend to leave it on number 4, which is the velocity camera. I'll explain what that is in a minute. If you really want, you can actually hide that display, but generally you'll probably want to leave it open. Now back on this side we have the mission computer, the top view, our map where we're located, mission where we can select our missions if we're containing any cargo. This funky graph here, this basically describes how much power you need to use to defeat gravity, and if you have any engine upgrades, then that number will change. Also, if you're carrying any cargo, that number will also change. So if we have a level 1 engine upgrade and we're carrying 1,000 cargo, we need 29.5 thrust percentage output, and that's displayed over there, that number there. Now one other feature the game has is this thing called thrust lock, and it's activated by pressing the back button. It's the one on the left hand side, just below the center Xbox button, and you'll see when I press it there's a little dot that appears next to that 0. That means it's on, if you can see that dot. And what that does is it basically locks the thrust down. Now when I increase my thrust, it basically holds the thrust position. Now that's really useful because if we look at this graph, it says that at 36% should be neutralizing gravity. So let's wind that up to 36%. Up it goes. Right, here we are. Just tap it up a little bit more. 36%. Now, if I just over on this side, there's a thing there called V rate. Now that's your vertical rate in meters per second. You see it's slowly climbing now. I'm going up at 1 centimeter per second right now. Now if I increase my thrust output, you'll see that number starts to climb. Up it goes. Now you'll also notice in the overhead display, it's now looking directly up. Now what that VCAM displays is your velocity vector, the direction that we are currently moving in. Now one nifty thing about the thrust lock is that because we're in space, there's no atmosphere, there's no drag, at least on the moon. Once you, apart from gravity, once you have some inertia or velocity, you'll basically maintain that energy until there's an opposite reaction. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring the thrust back down to 36%, and what that should do is basically prevent any more acceleration. We should basically stay at whatever our current velocity is, and currently it's 37.37 of a meter per second. It might slightly climb. Now why this is useful is because now if I switch off the thrust lock and let that V rate come down to 0 and then turn it back on right on 0, I should basically come to a hover. And about now at 0.4, but you can see I'm effectively hovering in space. Now then, now on the gamepad, the other inputs that you will want to use, on the right hand side we have pitch and roll. So forwards and backwards will pitch, left and right will roll the craft. But on the left hand side we have translation. Now if I push forwards, I should move forwards. If I push back, I should move directly backwards. And likewise for lateral movement, left and right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push directly forward. You'll see the velocity camera is now starting to point forward. And you'll also notice that that circle that's outside there is also a velocity indicator, which matches the one above on the VCam monitor. Now we're moving forward, and right in front of me here on this display here it says VEL 2.85. That's 2.85 meters per second. That's my magnitude, that's my total velocity, that one. And I'm leaving the alpha base. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull back on the stick, and I'm going to bring my velocity down, because my V rate's pretty stable. I'm not really going up. Well, I'm going up slowly, but I'm going to pull my velocity back. Here it comes, I'm slowing down. Watch the VCam, it's starting to translate that into upwards motion because I'm losing most of my forward motion. And now I'm pretty much back at stable. Now if I keep pushing back, you'll see the vector cam, velocity camera is now looking backwards. And now I'm going backwards. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off the power, the thrust, and watch the velocity camera go down and point down at the base that's behind me. Down it goes, down it goes. I can steer it, turn it back on. Now you'll notice that it's stabilized my velocity because we're at 36%. I'm not changing my velocity at all, and I've neutralized. I've basically fixed in dialed in a perfectly targeted velocity vector, and I'm aiming directly at the base. And that's a good thing because I'm below 50% fuel now, and I'm going to want to land and refuel. And so I'll just complete this, and once I've done that, I'll demonstrate a mission. So again, I'm just maintaining my velocity. When you first start, I started a new profile. I don't have any experience or upgrades, and I'm going to just fly this backwards, switch off the power again, switch it back on, just target this velocity, dial it in. In we go. Now these maneuvers are very fundamental things to understand. Once you understand how to master the velocity vector, you'll pretty much, everything will start to click for you in Lunar Flight. So I'm going to start pushing forwards now to reduce some of my reverse motion. Now when you pass over a base or a landing pad, this indicator in front of me will change to indicate my my orthogonal projection directly down over it, which means I'm directly above it. Now all I need to do is just watch the dots, keep myself lined up with them, and just watch my V rate. As long as my V rate's below 0.6, I won't do any damage on impact, so I can let that go. It's pretty safe. And there we go, I've landed. Now if I want to refuel, just look at the refuel button, off it goes, fuel light indicators come on, we are refueling. Now that's costing me money, and I'm going to need to get some money. And to do that, let's take a mission, transport mission. So here I can cycle through them. Usually there's about 6 missions per base. There's 4 bases on each map. So let's go with this one. It says transport 4,000 cargo to Delta. I'll get 5,000 credits for it. I'll get a range bonus, some additional experience points, and because I'm in the cockpit, I'll get 250. Everyone gets that in the virtual reality version of Lunar Flight. Now I'll just accept the mission. Now if I look at the cargo tab, we actually have the cargo on board, and as I mentioned before, this graph is important because if I look at 4,000, 45.5 is the point at which I can neutralize gravity. So if I switch my thrust lock back on, it remembers the setting that I had before, so I can bring it up to 45. What I tend to do is I dial it in first, 45.5, switch it back off, just top up the fuel tank. Oh no, we can't do that, right? Okay, that's a little bug. We'll leave it at that. We should be fine. So the cargo needs to go to Delta. So if I look at the map, oh, there we go, refuel. On the map, Delta is there. Now Delta is south of here. It's just off over to my right. And one nice little convenience is this select nav button. So that'll automatically select that navigation point for me, and you'll see this overhead horizontal indicator pointing to the base now, which is off in that direction. And in fact, if I switch to OHD mode 3, it's the nav point camera. It looks at your currently selected navigation point. Just to demonstrate that, I'll switch to a target. In targeting mode, you'll see some drones flying around here. Now that drone is directly off to my right. He's out there somewhere. There he is. Alright, we'll switch back to navigation, and let's go and deliver this cargo. So we're all ready to go. So I'm going to boost up. Now, one really important thing also to do when you first start playing Lunar Flight is to really just avoid using the right analog stick, because once you start pitching and rolling, if you're not really you're not really good at getting it back in under control, then you're in for a world of pain. So I'll just make sure that we're on the right navigation point. We're on Delta. Now, wait for my V-rates at 0. Okay, I've hovered. I'm going to use my right bumpers, the shoulder buttons on the Xbox controller. Now they control your yaw, or your facing direction. So if I hold the right one down, you can see I start turning to the right. Now I can line myself up with Delta base. I can look up on the nav point camera and see that I'm aligned with it. Now I can just push forward on the left stick and start translating forward. Off we go. Now yes, it's fairly slow and plodding, but once you upgrade, you'll find that the Lunar module becomes a lot more maneuverable. And of course, if you're a good pilot, you can just pitch this thing over and just give it a nice big boost, and you will get there quicker. But for the purposes of this video, I want to demonstrate very controlled flight. And so you can notice that my pitch angle hasn't changed. It's still on 0. My roll angle is still 0 because I haven't touched the pitch controls or the roll controls. I've only yawed to face the target, and off we go. So I'm doing 4.5 roughly meters per second towards the target. That's a nice safe cruise speed. I've got enough fuel, I think, to make it there. Now the reason you don't want to go too fast is because you have to slow down. And if you just look at the map here, you can see we've left Alpha Base. We're on our way to Delta, and maybe around about 2/3 of the distance from there, what is it now, 400 meters, maybe around 200 meters, I'll start reducing my velocity. So I'll just keep this thing lined up. I'll switch this back onto the velocity vector camera. The vertical line and the two horizontal lines either side of the cross in the center, that is the craft's alignment. So currently it's level. That's another indicator to help you keep yourself aligned and straight. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to switch off the thrust lock and bring my velocity vector down like I demonstrated before, switch it back on. Now I'm dialed in, aiming at the navigation point. We're on our way. Everything is a-okay. And back to cargo. Okay, so I'm about 150 meters out now, just easing back on the stick slightly just to start reducing that velocity. Again, I'll switch off my velocity vector, my thrust to just bring the velocity vector in alignment with my target. That means I'm using my optimal amount of fuel. I couldn't be using any less fuel for this, otherwise I would come up short on the target. Now as I approach, I am coming in a bit hot now, so what I'm going to do is just push back on the left stick. So I'm actually pushing back, but I'm also raising my thrust. So I'm doing two maneuvers here. I'm manually maintaining the thrust because I've overshot it. I'll switch the thrust lock back on. I might just bring the thrust up a little bit so I can start countering some of the drop in V rate. It's coming back up now. 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, just over there. Okay, we're cool. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. So just back her up. Back her up. Okay, we'll get up to about a meter per second. Switch off the thrust. Line this bad boy up. When you're coming backwards, everything's backwards, so watch out for that. And I hope I don't clip that building on the way past that habitat. That wouldn't be good. Okay, fuel warning is on. When you're down to 15% fuel, the fuel warning will come on. So I'll bring my my thrust down. I'm just passing over the base now. We've got plenty of fuel. Now, had I not overshot my initial pass, I would have had plenty of fuel to make this this landing. But we're good. Everything's fine. We've got plenty of fuel. Where are you? We're only a meter off the ground. In we come. Gently does it. And touchdown. Alright. So now that we're here, we can refuel. And because we're at the correct base, the unload button will highlight. And I can start unloading the cargo. And almost done. Mission complete. Now, Lunar Flight has achievements. This will give you a lot more, a lot more out of the game. Give you some challenges and objectives to complete. At the end of the mission, you'll get a mission debriefing. Yep, getting lots of achievements because it's a brand new profile. Achievements will also give you money. Now, you'll also have 31,000 credits, so that's another good reason to go after those achievements. You get experience, you get achievement points, and you get some money. And so the main menu you can pop up with the start button. It's a pretty common way of opening up menus in games, and I thought I would use the same thing. So in here, if you've created an online profile, online just means you want access to the leaderboards. You can look at the leaderboards and see who are all these amazing pilots who've been playing Lunar Flight for a long time. These guys are really awesome. They are really good, and they've put a lot of time into this game. If you want to find out where you are, you click on global. That's your global or world position. So retrieving the data. There I am, currently a recruit. Swimming back out of that. Remember, you don't have to use these X buttons. Everything can be done via the gamepad. The B button means back, so you can back out of any sub menu and do that straight away. Look at your stats. Look at all the achievements. Use the left analog stick here to scroll these if you want to inspect them all. There's 51 achievements to complete. And finally, the shop. So in the shop here, we can upgrade our Lunar module. We are currently only rank recruit. Now, if I was the next rank up, which I only need another 700 XP for, this first level upgrade will become available. So I just need to do one more mission, and then that would be available. And so, like in a lot of games, to be able to access level 2, you need to have purchased level 1. Now, one last thing, action items. Action items are very useful items because these you can buy at any time, and they can be lifesavers during a mission, in particular carrying extra fuel. So the extra fuel will give you an extra 500 units of fuel. That's an extra 50% of fuel. So if I buy that, it goes into slot 1. Now if I look over here, there's the action item. So when I close the menu, that's how I can activate it. And so you can carry a quick repair, a stabilizer, or a boost object. So I'll buy all these. If you want to sell them, you just look at the ones down here and sell them from the slot that you don't want. So I'm going to demonstrate the use of one of these, and I'll use the boost item. So the boost gives me 300% fuel. It'll make me take off really quickly, and I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to go full thrust, activate thrust lock, and hit the boost item. And off we go. Woohoo! Use an action item. So I hope this little tutorial helps you in your Lunar Flight travels, and thanks again for supporting the game. It's really come a long way. This the new VR update is really awesome. We're really happy with the way it turned out, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.